online and on your smart TV. Talk Radio TV News.
With your headlines, I'm Nadira Tudor. Boris Johnson still in control, say number 10. Anger at the Bank of England after they tell Brits not to ask for a pay rise. And the Winter Olympics kick off in Beijing. Boris Johnson's spokesman has insisted the Prime Minister is still in control of Downing Street after a series of resignations from his team. This morning, another aide left Downing Street, the fifth in 24 hours, although some of the departures are said to be planned. It comes as another Conservative MP submitted a letter of no confidence in Boris Johnson. Aaron Bell wrote the Partygate scandal has made his position untenable. There's been a furious backlash from unions after the boss of the Bank of England urged workers not to ask for big pay rises. Andrew Bailey, who last year took home nearly £600,000, said that staff needed to show restraint on pay. The GMB union called the comments a sick joke. Yesterday, the bank warned that Brits face the tightest squeeze in their living standards for 3 decades, with inflation predicted to hit over 70% in April. The Health Secretary has promised to wage a national war on cancer in England as 50,000 fewer diagnoses were made during the pandemic.
That's why today, on World Cancer Day, I'm launching a new call for evidence that will inform a new 10-year plan on cancer, about how we can do even better at prevention, how we can do much better in early diagnosis, and how we can make the very best use of cutting-edge treatments.
China has joined Russia in calling for an end to NATO expansion as the two major international players announced a strategic alliance. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russia's Vladimir Putin met at the Winter Olympics in Beijing. Well, away from the international diplomacy, the Winter Olympics are officially underway. Some sports have already begun, and the opening ceremony took place earlier in front of a limited crowd. It's the culmination of weeks of preparations by the Chinese state, who are attempting a zero-COVID strategy for the Games. That's your news on Talk Radio TV. More updates on the way soon.
Offence archaeology on Twitter. Quite terrifying.
Don't beg Jeff Bezos. Charge him, for God's sake.
Have a day off. Use some common sense.
People can say whatever they want.
Rinder Talk.
Talk Radio's Common Sense Weekend is here.
Drive home with Rob Rinder.
Live, loud, listen. Rinder Talk.
Don't get nicked listening to anything else.
Rob Rinder on Talk Radio.
Sorry? You didn't do it? Yeah. They're sitting at home, people, or wherever you are listening to this, with their bum clenching as much as I am. Now, my favourite part of the week, it's sort of like speaking to not just an expert, but an old-fashioned gentleman. It's Professor John Christopher Buer, White House correspondent at Real Political News, who's going to give us his view from over the pond. A lot to get through this week. It's a delight as ever to see you, Prof. JC. I'm going to get to the meat and veg very quickly. First of all, there was some news today that US Special Forces carried out an Afghan raid against the head of ISIS in Syria. It's a very important strategic moment. A lot of people would have thought that America had withdrawn from engaging in the world. This appears to not be the case.
No, this fellow, who I call a caliph in search of a caliphate, Mr. Qurashi, was taken out, in a sense, by an order from our president, Joe Biden, by putting in a special ops team, which, when this fellow knew his goose was being cooked, he tripwired his place and he blew up himself as an entire family.
Can I just pause there? You've just used an Americanism that people won't understand. Your goose being cooked. Help us out to translate for us. You mean, in other words, when he realized he was in trouble and the Americans were after him, what happened?
Well, think of Dickens and Christmas Carol, and he wanted a goose. His goose was cooked. In other words, the pot was ready for him, and his time was up. Let's put it that way. The gig was up, as we say in mob films, like in Bogey. Right. The gig is up, son. Mm-hmm. But yes, you're right, Rob, and I apologize for using Yankisms.
Now, can I just ask you something else? It's something I know that you want to talk about. It's something that disturbed me, but to get to the heart of it, there was a book burning in the USA conducted by the Christian right. And this seems to have been something that has, I say exercised you, but of course exercised everybody. When you burn books, it starts with books, and we know from history it ends in people. The reason when I heard this was something you wanted to talk about, I was a little bit skeptical, is because, I wondered whether anything has particularly changed by this sort of fringe group of the Christian right in America, or whether this really has any broader political significance or cultural significance in America. I mean, haven't these people always been a bit crazy?
Well, it's what I call the dumbing down of America. And if you keep the people stupid, and this is having to do with Trump and MAGA and all those individuals, and you don't educate your people, and I, as someone like yourself, cares about educating people, you realize that this is how things take hold. And if and those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, as Santayana said. And we know that this is happening in Tennessee, and they're burning books like Slaughterhouse-Five, George Orwell, The Catcher in the Rye, The Great Gatsby, To Kill a Mockingbird. Can you imagine?
Sorry, the irony of burning George Orwell, who warned against totalitarianism. Listen, there's one thing I have to pull you up on, because it just sort of it sits uncomfortably, to say the very least. That you've drawn a dotted line between book burning and this small community, wherever they are, of incorrigible idiots with the intellectual range of airline salads, whoever they are, extremists you might describe them as, and, the millions and millions of your fellow citizens who voted for Donald Trump. And isn't the fact that people are prepared to call people who voted for Donald Trump stupid, frankly, a failure of the political classes to understand what was going on? And those people aren't stupid, but they're tired of being called stupid.
Well, I don't care what they're tired of being called. They must be responsible. They must get educated, and they must not ban books and keep information from children, because we have a future beyond these people and beyond Donald Trump, who may not even be here in 2 years. Mm-hmm. The fact is that this has become an anti-intellectual, anti-science movement. And this is what Trump started with his anti-COVID nonsense. And he said it'll be gone in 15 days. And that 850 850,000 Americans dead because of that nonsense. Rob, I just pray every night before I go to sleep. I think of all my wonderful British friends. And I hope that this doesn't spread across the sea. And you start burning Chaucer and Shakespeare.
Well,
and Milton,
I mean, listen, I don't want to suggest you're using hyperbole, Prof. JC, but you've described this as, well, it's true. It happened at a kind of fringe moment in Tennessee. I mean, trust me, there are idiots in every part of the world. Are you suggesting that this is happening across America? Are there book burnings going on?
Yes,
are we facing? Where else?
Texas. Many, I can list you the places that they are book burning, but it's become the thing now. It's become the popular thing.
What books are they burning in Texas?
Well, they're burning George Orwell. They're burning, how about this one? They're burning Fahrenheit 451. They're burning Of Mice and Men. They're burning Steinbeck. These are American. They're burning To Kill a Mockingbird, Rob. Mm-hmm. I mean, and they're glorifying this, and they're cheering it, burning of books as well, and banning books as well. Mm-hmm. Books have anything to do with gay people or alternate lifestyles, or people who are of different religions, and we won't even talk about the brown and black Americans and all of the information that's coming out. They don't want to be able to talk about slavery in this country. And the African Americans who came over here, not certainly against their will, have made this country wonderful, and they want to pretend that they never existed. We can't talk about it. The librarians are fighting against this. The people with any sort of intellectual capacity are fighting against this, because this is how Lebensstrasse started.
Right.
This is how lying press started, and this is what's going on. I know you don't.
Well, no, listen, Prof. JC, I hear what you're saying. Librarians are always and always have been the central heroes in the free speech movement. That's for sure. But can you give me an example of any serious Republican, let's say, politician who stands by this? I mean, bearing in mind, people, for example, the senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, is a First Amendment, that's your free speech guarantee in your Constitution, fundamentalist. Are you telling me that he's out there standing by the bonfire throwing To Kill a Mockingbird on it?
I haven't seen him, but there's a governor who beat Terry McAuliffe because Terry was suggesting that teachers be allowed to use certain kinds of books, certain curriculum, and he used that against Terry, and he won. And this is in Virginia,
hang on a second. I have to put the other point of view to you. I have to pull you up on that. Wasn't it really the case that in that particular race that you're referring to, there was a community response, and what they were saying is they didn't want the theory, critical race theory, taught in schools, that they believed much more fundamentally, just to be clear what they're talking about, in Martin Luther King's vision of America and of race, that people should be evaluated by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. Let me just get to the end of the question. Rob. And critical race theory does a precise opposite by dividing communities. And we have a woman of color who, at the time, was an education secretary. You should watch. Her name's Kemi Badenoch, who stood up in Parliament and made clear that, as far as she was concerned, critical race theory in the national curriculum is a type of poison which would divide communities.
You're asking me, that's a question?
Well, I'm asking you that question.
I don't think Martin Luther King could imagine what's being said in his name today. Mm-hmm. And I know his grandchildren and his children are adamant about not allowing the history of slavery to be taught in our schools. The slavery is part of our legacy. It's made us actually even better than we are. It made us proud of our Black brothers and sisters who were forced to come here and have created an amazing job and work for themselves and a great culture for themselves.
Prof. JC, I have to push you on. Is it really about, and of course there's complexities about how America is governed. One of the great things is actually that there's direct democracy when it comes to what's taught in schools. You can go and be voted onto a school board and have an impact on your local curriculum. People should understand that. But isn't the real issue not that people don't want slavery to be taught? That's the foundational critical story of America, and of course influenced a number, 13th, 14th and amendments of your Constitution, critical parts of your history. That's not the issue. It isn't the chief problem that people are concerned that the lesson of slavery isn't about learning purely from the horrors of the past, but that white men and white students should inherit the blame for that slavery. Isn't that the chief problem?
No, Rob, please. But look, be my guest. Take a flight over here. Spend a couple of weeks. You'll love Washington. Michelle and I, my lovely wife, will take you out to dinner. We'll have a good old time, and you can listen to what's going on here. And we'll even take a trip down to Tennessee and see some of your followers who are actually in Tennessee. And you'll see it is rampant. It is not about the truth. Mm-hmm. It is not about putting Black people against white people. They don't want to teach the facts and the truth, and that this is an important part of our culture. You cannot bury culture. You cannot bury the truth. As Heinrich Heine said, if you start burning books, then you will start burning people.
Well, I agree with you on that point. They're having a go at me, as we would say in England, to go to break. But I've got to ask you this last thing, because when somebody told me this, honestly, I actually thought it was Steve inside. I actually thought he was having a moment. I didn't believe it was true, because we have this show here. I haven't seen the video. Is it true that the ex-mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, appeared on The Masked Singer? Or is this like some sort of early April Fool's joke? And apparently once he revealed himself, 2 of the judges walked off. Is this a true story, or are they winding me up, as we say here?
No. It is true. And Giuliani Remember, he was the guy on the South Lawn at the White House on January 6th who said, let's make this a trial by combat. I've known Giuliani for years. He was lucky that he escaped the mobs. They wanted to kill him because he went after the original Teflon Don before Donald Trump, Don Gotti, if you remember the Gambino family, Don Gotti. He wanted to go after Gotti, and the mob, the five families went and talked about it, and they said, no, let's leave Giuliani alone. Don't put a hit on Giuliani. And my feeling is, and I'm saying this as a New Yorker, in real New Yorkese, so you'll excuse me, the mobsters said, hey, Rudy's better in our pockets than in a coffin, so let's keep him alive.
Well, I have to say, I don't know what evidence you have of that implication, but as you know, we have libel laws in this country. I want to be
lots of this here.
Yeah, I believe you, but trust me, you don't want to end up in court. But what I will say is that, like him or loathe him, Rudy Giuliani had mayor during 9/11. Had a lot of political respect across the political aisle. I mean, I could think of a number of people now who are Howard Stern, for instance, who is now a clear blue Democrat, to say the very least, who was a big champion of him, as were a number of people in New York at the time. Everybody was Republican at that point, right? I mean, this journey of his, for want of a better way of putting it, has gone from certainly political respect now to appearing in The Masked Singer. I mean, so first of all, is it true? And do you think they're going to broadcast the episode?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a big follower. However, I heard about it. I'm sure they will. And remember, I'm a New Yorker. I lived a mile away from Donald Trump, and I knew Rudy Giuliani very well, and they were very close. Remember, Trump was in the construction business, and Rudy was the Southern District
attorney,
U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Now, when 9/11 happened, I was a young man when they put up the Twin Towers, as we called them. He was called America's mayor. He went to the Twin Towers. He was there with Hillary Clinton.
I remember.
With the governor of New York, and he was considered a hero. And he had a huge fall from grace. He was absolutely viciously angry with Hillary because he had prostate cancer and he couldn't run for Senate against her. He had to withdraw. I don't wish anybody any bad luck on that. But then his fall from grace has been precipitous. And now he's broke. He has a lot of women who he has to support. And Donald Trump is cut him off. So he's out there selling 9/11 T-shirts.
Well, that's the story of Rudy Giuliani. But listeners, you can watch him on The Masked Singer. You know, sometimes I find myself in cul-de-sacs of sentences I never thought I would say, but they're always delivered with a strong and clear, logical through line from you, Professor John Christopher Buer. Always a pleasure, never a chore. This is Rob Rinder. You're listening to Talk Radio.
Bold Talk. Talk Radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV. The world headquarters.